Southern Miss returns the favor. It's Locked On SUNBELT.
You are Locked On SUNBELT, your daily podcast on the SUNBELT Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On SUNBELT, your team every day. Today's episode brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. All right, Arkansas State with a major letdown. And, of course, we're going to pay tribute to the late, great Sean Clark, who passed away a couple of nights ago, the former App State coach, offensive line coach at UCF this season. All right, so Southern Miss returns the favor. As I mentioned last week, got a lot of criticism for it. App State handed them the game. Just gave them the game. Got down all the field, went down the whole field, not once, not twice, 3 times, and just kept on turning the ball over. Now, once that turned into points because of the deflection and Ian Foster's 99-yard touchdown return, but they just handed them the game. Listen to these statistics in Southern Miss's 30-20 loss to La Tech. First downs, 28-14, Southern Miss. Third downs, 7 for 17, 2 for 13, Southern Miss. La Tech did convert a couple of fourth downs, and Southern Miss did not. Total yards, 514 to 340, Southern Miss. Passing yards, 392, 239, Southern Miss. Now, La Tech was much more efficient with the football, as Southern Miss was 28 out of 47 passing-wise. La Tech, 15 out of 21. Obviously, they were ahead much of the game, so there was no reason to pass. All right. They did throw an interception. All right. Braylon Braxton had that one bad pick six for an interception. Well, the rushing attempts was about the same, 38 for La Tech and 35 for Southern Miss. All right. Time of possession, Southern Miss, 32-36, 27-24. Southern Miss handed La Tech the game. With the turnover and the bad play and the penalties. What were the penalties? 8 for 54. La Tech had 8 for 76. So same amount of penalties, and La Tech apparently had some bigger ones. But they handed them the game. There's no reason with those statistics you lost the game other than, well, they passed for a lot of yards because they were behind and trying to come back. Okay, I'll buy some of that. But still, what was it, 150 more yards in total offense? More. 160, almost 175 yards more in total offense. That doesn't happen. And when it does, you sort of get what happened with JMU, right? That's what happens. Let's see those statistics, because that's where you have the differential. All right. What was it? 31-13? 31-13. Team stats. 446 JMU, Liberty 233. So more than 200. But you get the idea, and that's usually what happens. You win by multiple scores. So, but I also think Southern Miss learned a big lesson. All right. And, you know, there is a culture change. You have to learn how to win. All right. I think we heard that from Ben Johnson from the Bears. They were not practicing in a championship level. Now they got a chance to play the Cowboys, so they rectified the winning part. But you have to learn how to win. And La Tech's good. All right. La Tech is good. And they took advantage of Southern Miss's mistakes. So we'll see. You got another ball game this week. Don't sleep on Jacksonville State. All right. That's at home. That's back at the Rock. That is not necessarily going to be an easy game either. So, again, one play at a time, next play, and move on. All right. But they need to run the ball a little bit better. As dynamic as Braylon Braxton is, it'd be nice to see them run the football a little bit more efficiently. That's what I would like. And he was just kind of loose with the ball. I'm not exactly sure what the offense was. And then when that game was over, basically, although not ended, but over, if you know what I mean, I started watching the South Alabama game more, and I saw some Southern Miss fans complaining about some coaching decisions. So we will watch that a little bit closer moving forward. All right. All right. What else do we have here? You know who else had a big ball game? How about Monroe? That's not easy. They had a 24-7 halftime lead at UTEP. UTEP not known for being a very good football program as of late. And I mean, they gave Utah State 28-16. They hung tough with Texas, right? 27-10. And they would not go away against Monroe. I think the big thing in this game was the ULM overall offense, 401 yards, although not very efficient on third down, just 2 of 10 and 0 of 1 on fourth down. Got to be better than that. Passed for 149 yards, still not passing a whole heck of a lot, 9 out of 15, but no interceptions. But they rushed it 41 times, 252 yards, 6 yards a clip. That's outstanding. Penalties are an issue. 12 penalties for almost 100 yards is not going to work. All right. Aiden Armenta, 8 out of 14 for 136 yards, 2 touchdowns. Hunter Herring did his thing, 1 attempt and 1 completion. Braylon McReynolds, the former South Alabama running back, had another good ball game, 18 carries, 107 yards. But Dorian Lewis, 79 yards. Armenta rushed for 19 yards. Hunter Herring had his rushing touchdown. And so that's very, very effective. They're not a passing football team. All right. You need a little bit. But here's the reason why ULM won and the Cajuns didn't. ULM seems to know what their limitations are, and the Cajuns don't quite know that yet. All right. Now, 9 out of 15 for 149 yards and 2 touchdowns and a loss would not look very good. But it looks very good when you're complimenting 41 carries and 252 yards at 6 yards a clip. And you win it 35-25 as your defense kind of bailed out, did bail out the offense in the fourth quarter. They scored a touchdown, making it 31-10 was the score after UTEP scored a field goal. And then ULM punted, UTEP punted, but ULM punted. And then to begin the fourth quarter, UTEP has touchdown, makes it 31-10. ULM punted, UTEP touchdown. Now it's 31-18. ULM punts, but then UTEP throws an interception. ULM goes for it on fourth down just to wind down the clock. UTEP throws another interception at the end of the ball game to hang on. ULM hangs on 31-25. Now ULM is 2-1, and they get, is that the Northwestern? They're getting the Northwestern. So they're playing the Big Ten. That's quite the schedule, Alabama and Northwestern. They will be in Chicago, Evanston, if you will, before they go to Coastal to open up their SUNBELT play. But that's a nice win on the road for ULM. UTEP, not an easy place to play in the mountains there. Not all that easy. Okay. Let's take a timeout. We'll come back. Arkansas State with a major letdown. They did not play well against Kennesaw State. We will do that next, right after I tell you about Square and Game Time. This episode is brought to you by Square, your favorite neighborhood spots run on Square. There's certain businesses that truly make the neighborhood feel like home, whether it's a local sports bar packed on game days, the coffee shop that knows your order by heart, or the corner deli that's been serving your community for decades. These are the places that bring people together. When neighborhood businesses thrive, the whole neighborhood thrives. Wouldn't you know it? Again, went to Hawks, had a good burger, and then saw a colleague that works at the distillery with me, although not for Jim Beam. All right. Didn't even know he lived in the neighborhood. Found him at Hawks. which is a great place, not too far from where I live. Guess the neighborhood would be Germantown, as they want to call it. Square is a proud partner of more than 4 million neighborhood businesses around the world. You can go to square.com/go/LockedOnCollege to learn more. But before you do, go support your favorite neighborhood spot. You'll be happy you did. Square. See you in the neighborhood. And game time. College football is back, and I couldn't be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, there's just nothing like it. But let's be real. Actually, getting tickets can feel more like a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping out at checkout. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantages back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. I pulled up the Game Time app in just a couple of taps. I looked up the Old Dominion Liberty prices, and you get a ticket for less than $50, but you better hustle up because those tickets are going to be tough to come by the time the weekend rolls around. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. All right, Dave Schultz, Lockdown Sunbelt, your teams every day. We had a bunch of teams that I think did have letdown. I think Southern Miss had a little bit of a letdown. Again, I think La Tech is pretty good. That doesn't mean that Southern Miss didn't have a little bit of a letdown after a big win against App State. South Alabama had a major letdown. Not sure if the Cajuns had a letdown playing an 0-3 team. They're sitting there at 1-2. And, with some pretty uninspiring performances so far this year. But Arkansas State had that let down because they played Arkansas, which they did get blown out at. Okay. But then they had a shot to play Iowa State. And then you're going to play Kennesaw State. And Kennesaw State had a 21-0 lead in the first quarter. That just can't happen. That is, you say it's a cliche, but that's not being ready to play. All right, that is just not being ready to play. Arkansas State gets the ball first, 3 plays, 3 yards, punt. Kennesaw touchdown, by the way. 5 plays, 75 yards, minute 37 seconds. Not great. Arkansas State gets the ball back, 4 plays, 15 yards. Not great. Kennesaw State, touchdown. Arkansas State, 3 plays and out. Kennesaw State, touchdown. So Arkansas State had a grand total of 10 plays, whereas Kennesaw State had a grand total of 21 points. Then, to make matters worse, they fumbled. Let's see where they fumbled. So it was a backwards pass, and that's considered a fumble. Kenyon Clay dropped it, or whatever the case was. I didn't see it. But that's at the Kennesaw State 35. This is ugly. This is some ugly stuff here. Kennesaw State went 10 plays, got stuffed because they didn't score, turnover on downs. Then Arkansas State punted, 13 more plays, but Kennesaw State fumbles. Arkansas State still punts, and they finally scored a touchdown at the end of that half to make it 21-7. And then Kennesaw State fumbles, and they're right back in it. 3 plays, 49 yards, minute 37 seconds, 21-14. But Kennesaw State with a touchdown. Fourth quarter, 16-play drive, Arkansas State with a touchdown, but then really never threatened after that. But they got behind because the cliche was they weren't ready to play. 10 plays in 3 possessions versus 3 touchdowns in 3 possessions. Can't happen. You can't do it. You can't do it. So that's not a great job by Arkansas State. That right there is a lack of maturity of the team, right? Which is kind of odd because they should be mature. All right. Georgia Southern, they actually even up there record at 2-2 took a little bit. They were playing FCS Maine, the Black Bears, who are a grand total of 0-4. They were leading them 17-7 at half, or I'm sorry, even more, 17-14 at half. Go on to win it 45-17. J.C. French didn't have all that good of a game. 19 out of 31, a little bit over 50%, 253 yards, a touchdown, interception. He did run for 42 yards on 6 carries. O.J. Arnold, 13 carries, 85 yards, and a touchdown. Weston Bryant also scored a touchdown on the ground. Jamarian Samuel scored a touchdown on the ground. Dalen Cobb had a touchdown on the ground. So we'll see what's going to happen here. We did have some other guys who threw some passes. Dalen Cobb threw a pass, 1 for 1, 44 yards. O.J. Arnold, 1 for 1 with a 12-yard touchdown pass. Turner Helton, 1 for 1 for 1 yard. And Weston Bryan, 0 for 1. So plenty of that. Camden Brown led the way with 6 receptions, 118 yards for Georgia Southern. All right, so it took a little bit, but eventually Georgia Southern pulled away. 516 yards to 248 yards resulted in a 45-17 ball game. Exactly. All right. Rushing wise, 40 carries, 206 yards. Right. Again, you're going to look at these statistics, and I really just care about the 28-3 in the second half is the impressive part. All right. They made whatever adjustments they were looking to make. They made them in the second half. All right. Texas State, easy win over Nichols. They led 28-3. Brad Jackson, a very efficient 13 out of 20 for 180 yards, no touchdowns or interceptions. Keldrick Luster got in there, 1 of 2 for 14 yards. Let's see. Brad Jackson did rush for 2 touchdowns, though. 8 carries for 37 yards. Lincoln Perry, 15 carries, 64 yards. He had a rushing touchdown. Burgess Jr. had a rushing touchdown. Greg Burrell had a rushing touchdown. Kylan Evans, 4 catches, 88 yards. Workman-like victory for Texas State. They're 3-1, 35-3 over Nichols. As Texas State, they will go to Arkansas State and see what happens there. All right. I mean, who knows what's going to happen there? Do we have a line on that game? We should have a line on that game. I got to believe Texas State's favored, right? It doesn't say here. It is on ESPNU, though. That's pretty cool. It really should tell me what the line is. Let's see here. Now I'm interested. I figured that they're going to be favored by 4 or 5 points, right? Let's see. Oh, that's their next game. I'm sorry, Arkansas State's got Monroe. So Texas State is off this week. So there's no line on that one yet. Okay. That's why there's no line. All right. So Texas State's off this week. All right. Let's take a time out, and we will say goodbye to former App State coach Sean Clark. Do that right after I tell you about Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings the same intention to how we craft every model. You can feel Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to available Napa leather upholstery. With all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Like our players, we sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. All right, Dave Schultz, Lockdown Sunbelt, your teams every day. I did wake up Monday morning to the tweets of the App State folks, and it looked like it was bad news. Contacted somebody, and obviously we all found out that Sean Clark had passed away. Word was he was doing better, but obviously did not make it. I'm not going to sit here and tell you I knew Sean Clark very well. He was very generous with his time, would always come on the show once or twice a year, right? You can't get them on a weekly episode, but he would come on all the time. And I appreciated them. And it's got to be so cool for a player to play at App State and then become the head coach. When you become the head coach of your alma mater, I think that's neat. And to do it there in Boone, North Carolina, so cool. And I knew that him and Sean Elliott, and I got those. I would always get those names confused because they're both Sean, and I believe they both spell them the same way. But Elliott used to be at Georgia State. They were teammates. I guess Elliott was the defensive lineman, and Clark was the offensive lineman. And I didn't know this. I didn't know he went to App State. Didn't realize they were teammates. Daniel Jeremiah of the NFL Network played with Sean Clark. All right. And really tough. And 2024 was a tough year with Hurricane Helene. They weren't as good as we thought they were going to be. The game with Liberty was a chance to turn that around, and it got washed away. All right. They did get a couple of wins last year. It should be mentioned. They did. They beat somebody they weren't supposed to off the top of my head. Let me see. I'm going to say JMU, but I'm not sure. They beat Georgia State. They beat Old Dominion. All right. And then they beat JMU. All right. And they lost to Georgia Southern at the end. But they beat James Madison 34-20. They had a shot for a bowl game, as dismal as the season was, with a win over Georgia Southern. They actually won 3 of the last 5 ball games after losing 3 straight, right? They won 2 in a row, or they won 2 out of 3, but they didn't look good doing it. Losing to Clemson, slipping past East Carolina, got embarrassed on national TV by South Alabama, lost badly to Marshall, and then lost to the Cajuns. And that's after the whole Helene mess. Bounced back to beat Georgia State and Old Dominion, loses to Coastal Carolina. That was a ball game that I actually joked with him after the press conference at the SUNBELT championship game. I had just been let go the week before from the radio job, and I wasn't going to sit around. I might as well drive up to Troy and see what's going on, right? And that was a game. I remember that ball game. They were going to win that game. All right. They had trouble with Grayson McCall, but they were going to win that ball game. And they had a first down, and they were going to go score a touchdown. But the receiver, I'm going to have to look this up now, fumbled the ball. They got what they wanted. Although this says a 2-score game, 38-24, this game was going to be over. Let's see if we got there was a fumble in here. Was it the interception? No. There was a turnover in here that did not go their way. And I'm pretty sure that was against Coastal Carolina. They got the first down that they needed, and they were going to win the football game, except they fumbled the ball away. And, you talk to him, and you should have won that Coastal Carolina. I even said, there's could have and should have. That was a should have, right? And he joked about it, and they were playing Troy. And I know Troy won that football game. That game was a lot closer than the score would indicate, because it was a 1-score game, and then you got the strip, sack, and fumble, and then that was all she wrote. Then it got out of control from there, but it wasn't as much of a blowout, at least until that point in time, that we thought it was. But obviously, again, App State is one of those places where I don't want to say the expectations are unreasonable, because if you're used to winning championships, you're used to winning championships. We're going to say the same thing for Alabama, right? And their expectations are winning championships. So App State was going to do that. And probably Coach Clark, and even if you go to a bowl game, probably would not have been able to stick around last year. But landed on his feet at UCF. They're undefeated. And really a shame that we did lose somebody. And then I realized he's 50. I'm older. And right now, not in particularly good shape. Although, I'm told pear is a shape as well, so I'm in the shape of a pear. But I'm going to miss Coach Clark. He was always, again, very gracious whenever we saw him. SUNBELT Media Days, coming on the show again. It seems like I've been doing this forever, but really only about, I think, 3 years maybe. don't think it was, maybe it was 21. No, it's 3 years. So 22. So it was right after. I started right after all those big 3 wins, right? App had a big win. Marshall had a big win, and Georgia Southern had a big win, right? It would have been nice to start like that Monday, but I think I started the week after. But everyone was gracious to come on, and I know he meant a lot to the App State family, and the SUNBELT. When it comes time, we rally around each other. All right. When Lafayette flooded, it wasn't a hurricane; it just was bad rains, like literally 100-year storm, and people's homes were ruined. And Joey Jones from South Alabama packed a truck and sent it to Lafayette. All right. And I know all the schools did all they could for when, the same thing went for Boone. And we tried to get the word out how badly Boone needed help. And it's such a great place, right? I saw someone, I don't know if it was tongue in cheek or not, but someone posted, or he even said, I'm going to, hate, seeing this picture, and it's the App State baseball field in the middle of the mountains, surrounded by the trees. And that's why it's lovely Boone, North Carolina. I mean, you just can't get a much more picturesque thing than that. It's gorgeous. And we're going to see all that with the changing of the leaves. We're going to see it a lot, and it deserves to be seen. Did see, on a side note, Howard Loggins do the press conference today. Tough. That's a tough press conference, right? He's taken over for Sean Clark. Sean Clark passes away. Says that Sean Clark said anything you need. I mean, I don't mind how many times you call the guy you replaced. But because he's an App State guy, he's going to want Dowell to do as well as he can. So on a side note, kind of feels like App State's going to be healthy. We'll find out. They said they were going through a walkthrough on Monday and then practice on Tuesday. So I'm sure, we'll find out if AJ Swan is playing, I would think sooner rather than later. Right. So we'll see if we get reports of that coming out today. Again, thank you so much for tuning in. Not an easy episode. And obviously, sending all the condolences to App State. Got to send them out to UCF as well. Scott Frost and his crew. It is not easy. For those of us who remember the movie The Big Chill, that's kind of what these players at UCF and the App State players are going through, right? They're having an adult moment when they are very young adults. And I like the idea that Coach Loggins, when they found out what happened to Coach Clark a couple weeks ago, he told the players, he's like, there's a lot of guys here that got recruited by Sean Clark. So they need to know what's going on now in case what happened. So, tough day all around for the App State and UCF family. All right. So we will be back tomorrow. I got some good ideas. I mean, did Tim Beck save his job? Right. And can he get fired with one bad year? Is that the way it's going? And what about Cajuns fans? I mean, you realize the starting quarterback is hurt. You realize the offensive line is hurt. You understand that, right? I'm not making excuses or, these are reasons, right? Now, if you want to blame the coach for not getting a good backup quarterback, fine. But they're not exactly playing with the guys they expected to play with. Does that mean you should lose to Eastern Michigan? Probably not. But, the last guy had a healthy quarterback for 3 straight years. Desimo, for whatever reason, can't keep a quarterback healthy for 3 straight weeks. It's mind-boggling. All right, so getting out of here on a little bit of a lighter note. All right. We'll be back again on a Wednesday for those of us who are celebrating the Jewish New Year. Everyone, Shana Tova, happy and healthy New Year. May you dip the apples in the honey and have a sweet New Year. Back again on a Wednesday for another edition of Locked on Sunbelt. Have a great day, everybody.